Hi and welcome back to our second episode of this esports psychology mini-series. I'm Callum from Level Up Performance, and today we'll be talking about fight or flight gaming and whether you're a top-down or bottom-up processor. So most of us have probably been in a situation where you're playing a game and gradually begin to zone out and stop consciously thinking of the match completely, and before you know it, the game is actually finished and you've somehow won. Once you're in the zone, you stop thinking and everything just seems to click without too much effort. So think of this like driving the same route to work or school every day. After a while your mind might start to wander, and before you know it you've actually arrived at your destination. Now this is because the bottom-up process has decided to take the wheel and your top-down process were actually allowed to drift. Now what bottom-up processing refers to is the more primal and instinctive aspects of subconscious thought, whilst top-down refers to the highly advanced frontal areas of the brain which can consciously influence attention and control. So take a look at this image. What did you immediately see? Was it the saxophonist or a face? Whatever you initially saw was a result of bottom-up processing, where your brain rapidly interprets the environment around you. You didn't have to think about what the image looked like, you just knew. However, if you engage your top-down processes and instruct yourself to see the other part of the illusion, you can actually do this. Do this for a bit now. Tell yourself to stare at the face and see the saxophonist and then the face itself, and switch between the two, and just keep doing that until you can kind of get a handle on how you do it. So this is how the trade-off works between the different types of processing. Bottom-up processes are instinctual and rapid, usually concerned with fight or flight, whilst top-down are more rational and calculated, but slower. Bottom-up processing will help you in snap life or death scenarios, like which direction to jump to avoid a car, or reflexively holding your hands up to block a punch, but isn't going to be very helpful when deciding on what car insurance to buy, or what you need to get from the food shop. Both types of processing are essential for optimal performance in esports and in life, just in different ways. So you might be thinking, how could this ever be beneficial to me whilst gaming? Just think about a time when you blew a small problem out of proportion and began to overthink the potential outcomes. Now that is top-down interference. This can have a huge detrimental effect on your game if you can't tune out this stream of consciousness, which can interfere with basic practiced rhythms, just like how people can freeze on stage just by hours of practice beforehand. Or conversely, think about a time you fell for a decoy or a trap online because you didn't rationally think all the options through. That's bottom-up interference. That's where you just instinctively react rather than thinking the outcomes through. So it's essential that both styles of processing are trained if you want to boost your performance. In a high-pressure, low-time situation, such as when you're the defending team and a bomb has just been planted, it can be beneficial to engage the instinctual bottom-up processing in reaction to opposition movement directly after the plant, and heightened awareness when attempting to actually defuse. This can be buffed over time through repeated practice and habit forming. This sort of processing is what elite cricketers use when they subconsciously calculate where the ball will land just from the bowler's subtle body cues. And it's also how you may have got a kill in Siege or CSGO based purely on reactions when startled, rather than thanks to calculation and strategy. However, being a bottom-up processor alone isn't enough. If all pro gamers were solely bottom-up, you'd only ever see reactionary-based gaming based on instinct, rather than the complex nail-biting strategic games you often see at the peak level of performance. Now the perfect balance is using top-down processing to create and learn routines to boost performance, and eventually allowing the bottom-up processes to take control of these so it is no longer a slow, energy-consuming conscious task. This allows strategy to go from being self-talk and language-based to rhythm and gut feeling-based, in turn becoming a much faster process. Just think about when you first learned to ride a bike. To start with, you were probably hyper-conscious of your balance and completely top-down in processing, focusing on your hand angle, head angle, leg rotation. But now when you get on a bike, I bet you don't even think about these things because the bottom-up processes have completely taken the lead. So how exactly do you train to be a more bottom-up processor? Routine, routine, routine. This is one of the most effective ways to turn conscious processing into the subconscious. Develop routines that work for you, which include triggers for automated response, and practice them over and over. Eventually you'll find that when you use your trigger, your top-down processing will disengage and shift focus, allowing the bottom-up processes to take up the slack. So, for example, let's say in Overwatch you've just been nano-boosted. Now if you don't play Overwatch, this is where one of the characters can choose another team member to be boosted for increased damage and defense against others. Every time you're nano-boosted, however, let's say you become hyper-conscious of everyone's expectations of you to do well because of the temporary stat boost, and as a result you start overthinking and miss easy shots that seem natural at any other time. So for this situation, maybe a routine which specifically trains you over and over in being nano-boosted, with a friend's help of course, until it becomes the norm and feels no different could help you. It's much the same as when you're playing Siege and you're the last alive and you know everyone on your team is actually watching you. Do you find the simplest of things hard, or is it just like another game for you? So, I hope you found this video useful and you know more about which processing style you fit into and why. Feel free to follow us on Twitter or get in contact via the email below. You can also find us at www.levelupperformanceuk.wordpress.com. We'll see you next time for some more Manna for the Mind.